So it is about 4 minutes after 6. I'd like to call this session of the Seldovia Planning Commission to order. And if the clerk would call the roll.
Commissioner Sweet,
Here.
Commissioner Forsberg, Commissioner Kroll. That was a here from Commissioner Kroll. Commissioner Ryan. Turn on your mic. Here. Great. All right, we have 4 present, Madam Chair.
And then if I could have a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
All right, I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Sweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Forsberg, Commissioner Kroll.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Ryan.
Yes,
All right. Motion passes with 4 in the affirmative.
And the next one is for the approval of the minutes. If I could have a motion.
Motion to approve. Second that.
So that's a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Forsberg, a second from Commissioner Kroll. For the vote, Commissioner Sweet,
Yes.
Commissioner Forsberg,
Yes.
and Commissioner Kroll,
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
yes.
I have 4 votes in the affirmative, motion passes.
And then item E is public comments regarding items not on the agenda.
I do not see any hands raised at this time.
And public hearing prior notice. I don't believe there are any items on that.
Yeah, that's correct. There are not.
And are there any consideration of site plans?
I'm sure there are not.
And then the next item is commission business and commercial business district subcommittee report.
Would you like me to share my screen or did you want to?
Yeah, if you would do that. And then I just wanted to let the commissioners know that Marcia Patrick is here and she was the vice chair of the subcommittee. So we have representation from the committee. And we'll go through a brief PowerPoint presentation. And if Marcia, if you have anything as we're going along, if you want to just speak up so that we can make sure that we're getting us the best information from what the committee did. I would like to also let you know that in your packet you have the report from the commission, from the subcommittee, and that includes the recommendations that were agreed to by the subcommittee. And then you have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in your packet as well. You have a copy of a rough draft of the beginning ordinance, and the reason for that is that what we're in an arc of going from recommendations to action, and in order to complete the action, what we need to do is go through the recommendations. And in order for the city council to take action on our recommendations, we need to have a draft ordinance, and they have a process to review and act on it. So that's why it's in that format. And then you also have a copy of a worksheet that will be used, a sample worksheet of how we will be working on the recommendations, and I'll be talking about a work plan. So interestingly, we started this process about a year ago, and Roger, you had mentioned that, you know, the business community was concerned about some of the ordinance changes, and so that led into creating the subcommittee and getting the city council to agree to it, and then we went forward with the subcommittee. So the next slide, please. So Jamie Martin and Marcia Patrick were the team leaders, and then Don Bodyfelt, Sandy Bridge, Elena Chartier, Ekla Collier, Chris Lethine, Leslie Martin, Walt Martin, Jerry Stranick, Allison Ryan, and Vivian Robles were on the committee, and then the city staff, Heidi Gagel, the city manager, and Liz Diamond, the city clerk, provided support for the meeting. And next slide. And so what we did was we went through some historical documents and just got a feel for, you know, how things had been done in Seldovia, the comprehensive plan, etc. There were three main parts of the zoning code that the committee dealt with. One had to do with specific definitions, one had to do with commercial business district, and one had to do with the land use table. And those are the places that the public goes to find out what requirements are and so forth. The team made specific recommendations, and basically the idea is to be complementary towards economic development. You can find the municipal code is online as well if you would want to look at it. So the central business district has been the town center. There has been a challenge in terms of having the ongoing year-round businesses, seasonal businesses. So that's been a challenge. And so there's a desire to help support the business community and also for the community to have that central business district. Our business owners are concerned because it can be a challenge to operate year-round. Some businesses are only operating on a seasonal basis because that's what they can do. And our economic climate has certainly changed over time, so that's another challenge that we have. And I think one of the things that we know from our meetings is people really care about our community, and they care deeply, and a lot of the things that have been going on have been very people want this to work so that they can operate their business, and there's a desire for our community to enjoy the waterfront area. We also want to continue to help support subcommittees with learning and development sort of on an ongoing basis so that people who want to participate are supported when they're doing so. So kind of at the big picture level, we had about 17, what I would characterize, sorry, apologize. I flipped through. Yes, okay, sorry. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So we had, on our next slide here, we have about 17 administrative so it could be formatting, clarifying, streamlining definitions, and the land use table. And then we have others that were more complicated that will need a little bit more effort to review and then update the relevant municipal code. There were 2 non-consensus items, and then we had one proposal about the boardwalk. If you go to the next page, you can see the types of recommendations on page 6 here that were brought up to help clarify and update the municipal code. So I'll just give you a moment to take a peek at that. And Marcia, did you have any feedback on these recommendations, or is this? Okay, so, and then the next page is kind of continue on where there may be some more policy strategy type of things. It may take a little bit of effort to go through those. One of them being focusing on the business, on the definition of business and being in business. And I think that will take some discussion, and then making sure that that's put together in a way that works for our community. And then there were some non-consensus. So basically the committee worked on a consensus basis, and there were some ideas on rezoning some properties south of the pavilion. And so that particular issue did not have consensus by the group, but the homeowners can submit an application via there's a specific process in the code. In 1897, there's an amendment procedure. So the homeowners may do that if they wish. And then there were some other ideas about short-term accommodations, but those weren't fully, those weren't on a consensus basis. And the last item is that there was a presentation about a proposal for a boardwalk in the commercial business district, and there wasn't a vote on that proposal. I don't think there was a request for a vote on it. It was just there was a presentation about it, but the boardwalk is on the capital improvement list, but it is currently not a priority because of the other priorities that are on the city's project list. And so I guess understanding that, and I just have a quick question about that to the city manager and city clerk, is so if understanding that there are priorities on the city about more immediate needs, and then the staff really doesn't, I guess the staff doesn't currently have the bandwidth to work on looking for additional funding, or I guess I just would like to understand better how we deal with something like this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's an excellent question. So the City Council develops a capital improvement program annually, or I should say they update it, and it's a 5-year plan. And everything they put in the plan is potentially it's supposed to be something that they want to pursue or work on within the next 5 years. However, in this last discussion, it really came to the forefront how much deferred maintenance needs there are. And when they were talking about the structure of the plan, the council was in agreement that the projects with deferred maintenance, we have some facilities that need roof repairs or roof replacements, siding repairs. For instance, this building, the siding is past its useful life on this building or getting there, and it needs to be fully replaced. Another building needs a full roof. There's some water and sewer needs, just some more urgent pressing infrastructure needs that the council was in agreement that they wanted to have more focus on taking care of what we already have before we start pursuing bringing in new infrastructure. However, there was support for the boardwalk project, and I think that it's something that they would like to see. So it is included in the plan. It's not a number 1 priority. I believe it might have been a number 3, because number 1's like immediate structure needs. Number 2 is planning and some of the infrastructure needs that are coming. And the number 3 are some of the visionary items. It was kind of how the plan was structured itself. And really that helps guide the direction of staff and council, but also then when we start talking budget and we talk staff time, and they do a shorter, like a council priority annually every year in December for the next year. That's really what gives us the direction of where we need to be. And right now it's our capacity is pretty full with the infrastructure needs, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to go there. I have heard some ideas about some grassroots efforts and people in the community picking it up. If there's individuals who have more time and ability to accomplish some of these tasks, I think the city would be happy to work with them and figure out what that looks like. Just at this point, the council has determined that they want to focus on the existing deferred maintenance needs. But it's in there. We'll get there.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about kind of translating the recommendations to action, but I just wanted to pause and just check in and just see if anybody had any questions or comments to this point.
Yeah, Jerry Stranick is online. Jerry, if
Hello.
you can hear us, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. A little bit quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, being as a member of the committee, I hope you don't mind my late joining you here and everything. And first of all, I appreciate all the work that the staff has done and the committee has done. It's a huge undertaking, and a lot of energy went into it. It was interesting watching it. I was gone a lot of the time, but I watched it online most of the time. Anyway, I understand the infrastructure. In fact, I agree entirely on it being a placement 3 for the boardwalk along the inside of the harbor there, and because there are so many other things that the city really needs to do, and it just takes on the private level to to really kind of do the homework and look at the actual costs, the actual maintenance, the actual how it interrupts snow removal, so forth. A lot of things, you know. I think, you can build something, but maintaining it over time is the real thing. So that I really appreciate where it's at, that you recognize it as a vision, and that's pleasing to me. So the other question is, and you can correct me now, that the old boardwalk was part of that plan, and we had two grants that we applied for, and I think both were turned down. But the maintenance of the old boardwalk, I think, is fundamental. It's, to tell you the truth, I think it's the cheapest, the least expensive maintenance of any street in Seldovia. And as you know, I intervened and saved some of the timbers from the bridge project from the state, and they were, as a moment's notice, the city said, yes, you can store that in our yard and we can use that. And I understand the city has acquired some more. And I'd just like to be informed of what budget or when that is going to happen, and so forth, because it's not, there's a couple little small spots that are unsafe right now, but they're mostly, it's just a matter of getting it done. And I was hoping it was going to be done before the tourist season, but it obviously doesn't look like it. But so those are the two things. And I, of course, as you know, I really have been after this for 30 years or more, trying to get this internal boardwalk done. And everybody likes the idea, but it's a very expensive idea in times where we really need to focus on some of the more important things that are to the city's survival for everybody. And but anyway, hopefully it can do. I was kind of blindsided I got 19 out of 20 people that own property to approve of the thing. I have a formal intention to participate by 19 out of 20 of the owners of the property inside, and it's one says no. And anyway, I'm trying not to say who it is because you can find that out for yourselves. But anyway, I just want to say that I appreciate the work that everybody has done for this whole thing. It was a lot of work. And I won't even, well, I shouldn't comment on that. I should just comment about this. If I have something more to say on future things, I can raise my hand, because I was a member of the committee. I know it's sort of out of protocol for this phone in and do this, but I thought it would be better. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, we'll be, what I'd like to do is we'll be going from our recommendations to working on definitions and updates to the land use table. And there's one section that has to do with describing the central business district or commercial business district. And so in order to do that, we will be, sorry, I think I have so many moving parts here. If you look on your, toward the back of your packet, there's a draft ordinance, and one of the recommendations that the committee asked was to clean up the land use table and put it in alphabetical order so that it was easy for people to look at and find what they needed. And so we've been able to get that done just so that it'll be done. And then as we're working on updating the code, it'll be the beginning of our working draft. So that recommendation has been implemented. And so I had one question I had for the commission is that in order to review the recommendations, and then give that, figure out, finalize what we want each of the recommendations to be. Would you prefer to do that in a work session, like immediately before the meeting, the regular planning commission meeting, or do you want to just have it as an agenda item and then we can work it into the meeting and then move forward in that way? So just asking for feedback from the commission.
I just had a question, stepping back to the boardwalk. Was that gonna hook up to the historic boardwalk? Is that the plan or what? And then how far is it gonna go that way? That's probably been discussed.
If I recall correctly, I think it was gonna start, it was proposed to, I guess maybe, the best thing we could do is just ask Jerry to tell us because he knows for sure.
Okay, am I on now? Hello,
You're on.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it started at inside the harbor where you launch the boats towards the building that's being sort of demolished right now. And so it would go down and it would come up, back, go along all the business district in that area, about 5 to 6, 7 feet, wherever you happen to be on the circle there. And then it would come up at the ramp that goes out to the harbor docks and so forth, because you can't go under it. There's tides, all tides have to be considered. And it has to be handicap access too. So you come up there and then you go back down on the other side of that. And then it goes all the way to the city park, which is past the Lathene's, Chris Lathene's property there. So the 3 that were in question for rezoning. And it goes to the Chris Lathene's and goes back up into that park, which is right across the street from the old boardwalk. And so you would have a sort of a circular route that the people could go around and then come back up to Main Street. And then, and the future vision also was to put a seafarers monument somewhere around the pavilion area, which would be down below too, where people could walk out onto that. And it would be a gazebo type thing with some form of monument. Tim Dillon has been, it built the pavilion there and so forth and did a wonderful job and maintains it actually too a lot. And anyway, but he has a design in his mind for that, which would be quite nice for our harbor area. And so then it comes back up and you go back up to Main Street from where the boardwalk is now. So it'd be a circular thing where people can make a big circle and yet they can access businesses if they want to. But if the people that own the property below the boardwalk, they wanted to be private and didn't want access to their place. They could have access to the boardwalk, but they would have it sort of says private property. And so you'd have a gate there that wouldn't be open. But it would be beneficial for anybody that had a business or just wanted to access it. It'd be very beneficial. And I'm sure it would be a value added thing to everybody that was on that boardwalk too. So anyway, any other questions I can answer them, but I think that covers it.
Thank you, Jerry. And so I'd just like to, so going back to the how we would move forward with working on the recommendations, would you all prefer to have a work session before or after the regular commission meeting or just have it be an agenda item for the commission. So just wanting to get some feedback on that.
Are you thinking we go through all of it
Yeah.
in one meeting?
Not all of it. I'm sorry. So for example, if you look on page 10, for the June meeting or the date of June 5th is our next meeting. And so we would just do like, there's five, I just identified five items to go through. So we wouldn't be, it wouldn't be a huge time sink. It would just be work on a group of them, take care of it, and then give it to the staff, and then they'd update it, and then we'd continue to work the updating of the code, and then also we would communicate with the city council to let them know what we were working on from month to month so that they're not surprised by anything that we're working on. That it's just so it's I guess the strategy is to do a few at a time and then get our process down so that we can start with the less complicated ones. Some of these things have suggested definitions already, so it might not take too long to work on them. And then those can be dealt with. And then as we work through it, if we notice anything that we should be taking into account as we're working through it, then we can flag that and then incorporate it into our discussions. So it could take us, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to go through things.
Is that acceptable to the city council? The thing would take that long?
I'm sorry.
Is that okay with the city council? Do they realize how long this?
Well, I think
process-
one person said that they thought it might take us a year to do it. I don't know if it will or not, but I think if we just start working on it and see how it goes, then we'll have a better idea of how long it will actually take.
Okay.
Does
Seems
that,
like an awful long time to invest in this one thing, but I guess I'd like to see it done during our regular meetings unless
okay.
we could speed it up by doing
And
working meetings and maybe just have more of a condensed time frame and just get it through it rather than dragging it out. I guess because I've been through the whole, rest of it.
so
process.
let me ask you this. Would you like to add like more recommendations for June than there are listed on the page there?
Yes.
It's on page 10 that
Yeah.
has the current list. So if you want to,
Well, that's coming out of these charts that were the recommendations.
yeah, it's the charts are just I tried to do it like an at a glance kind of thing from the recommendations that were in the report, just because just so that you had a way of looking at them. But I can go through things and add more to them if you want to work through some more next month, and then we can see how it goes too. So I can have more at the ready, and then we can say like, so do we want to spend like our meetings, our commission meetings have typically been about an hour, right? And so I don't know if it would be like, would we want to spend like a half an hour on this stuff? Is that, and just try to keep things fairly succinct. I mean, I'm sort of mindful of everybody's time, but also want to do, a good job so that we can get it done and honor the work that was done before and get it actually updated in the code. Roger?
I had a question.
You can turn on your mic, Roger.
like the sales tax regulation, that doesn't a borough handle that? How
On,
much and what and where and when?
on that particular item, it's just the requirements for operating a business. So you have to have sales tax registration, Alaska business license, a Seldovia business license, and licenses that are applicable to what your activity is. So that one's actually a fairly small one, but yeah, it's it's just saying that if you're operating a business in Seldovia, this is what you need to have.
All right. Thank you.
So,
Madam Chair, can I add a idea?
sure.
So I noticed in here that you mentioned that the recommendations were for the land use table and the definitions, but there are actually a couple of recommendations for commercial business district code itself, one being a name change, the other being the inclusion of the expectation of operating a business with those items that were just listed. So maybe that can be a part of the next discussion, because it, as you said, it has the definition there, and then incorporating that into the draft ordinance.
Sure.
It's just an idea.
Yeah, we can, and that's in the section 1952 is yeah. So
It-
we can add that too, because that's fairly straightforward, and it's already got a suggested verbiage, so we can go through that. And Marcia, did you have anything else? Okay. All right, so what I think I understand is that we'll add more items to the agenda for next week or next month, sorry, next month's meeting, and we'll do this, a review of recommendations within the context of the planning commission meeting. Is that kind of, is that okay? Is that kind of the way to go forward with this?
There's a chance I might not be here next June, is it?
June 5th. And so what we'll do is we'll get the materials sent out a week ahead of time, and then make sure, and then if you can't be here, if you have any
Yeah.
feedback to offer, then you can just,
I think June.
yeah, that would be great. Okay. So, and then just as an example, at the last sheet on in your packet, there's just a worksheet example. So, and the recommendation is identified that, that there needs to be a definition for bed and breakfast. And so in this case, there's the part of the municipal code that has definitions in it is the 18-20-15, and each definition item is given a number, so that's why there's questions there. But so we would have that definition created, and then and the land use table already has bed and breakfast in it. It just didn't happen to have a definition, and there's a definition, there's at least a draft definition, so it's something we can look at it, and if anybody has any tweaks to it, that can be done, and then it can be updated. So it's fairly straightforward. And in this case, I don't think that this definition would have any adverse impacts on any other any other districts, because there currently isn't a definition, but if anybody had a definite. So I think that's one of the things that we would probably talk about is if we were doing anything to change a definition, then are we doing anything that could adversely impact any other district? So we're making sure that we're not creating problems for someone else. So that'll be our format, just to go through, at least to have it organized and be able to look at it and figure out, okay, is there anything else we need to think about? And as we're going along, if there's anything else that you can think of that would be good to put in the format, just as we're talking about things, then we can always add to it. So any questions, any final thoughts? And I guess and also from the city clerk or the city manager, any other thoughts or feedback from your end?
Just one thought, and hopefully it doesn't confuse the matter, but in looking through the recommendations, when you look at the example land use table, even though there's the draft ordinance at the end, it's kind of maybe a good guide to look at what the group was hoping would come out of it versus where you are. So I don't know, it helps me in my mind to see this is what it could look like with these implementations. And then having the other districts blank so you can kind of see where it fits in with them as you go through the discussion. But I don't know if others will find that helpful or not.
I don't really have anything to add at this time,
Okay.
but I think that as we go through the process, I think it'll kind of flesh out after we do a couple of these recommendations.
Okay, so I guess we'll kind of incorporate the review and updating of the recommendations into our regular meeting process, and then move forward with it in that way. And then we'll make sure that the city council is briefed so that they know kind of what we're up to and moving forward, so that we're keeping good communication between us and them.
Okay, was this presented to the city council?
Not yet, but
Okay.
I would like to do that, just to, and I'll check with, I guess we'll, maybe what I'd like to do is let them know, what we came up with, and then let them know that we'll provide briefings for them on a monthly basis, so that they know where we're at in terms of our work on updating it, and that when we're done with that process, when we're completed with our updating the code, the draft code with our recommendations, then we will then provide then we'll go through the formal process of providing the draft ordinance. And so the draft ordinance will then include the municipal code for the definitions for the commercial district and for the land use table. So all of those things that we will be updating will then go to them, so that they will be able to go through their process where they have to take it in at one meeting and then have a public hearing, and then they decide on how they want to act on it. Any other questions? Does that sound like a good way to go forward? Okay. And I guess, so continuing on with our agenda, is there anything from the staff?
I guess I'd like to say we're on to building permit season. So we have about 5 building permits in hand right now that we're working through. And so those are going forward, and we have a volunteer to review one of them tonight. We can then have 4 as well. And as far as the other issue that's up is the Cedar Street extension, and just wanted to update the commission on where we're at with that. We do have quotes for 3 different proposals from Seabright Surveys. One would be just to do the public use easement on Cedar Street. And the other 2 would combine replatting the Willow Street side to it. And we're just kind of waiting to get clarification from some of the property owners on which way we'd like to go forward and get their approval and start that process. Oh, yes, and the topographical ordinance. So we're working through that on there the process. There's been a couple of things that have been brought through as suggestions, and it would be nice to hear some of the commission's input on that. One is to raise the building permit fee and have actually subcontract out and hire somebody to do inspections for the zoning and permits. And I'm not sure if the commission, how anyone would feel about that part of it. And right now we're just kind of working through what that process would look like for bringing that forward to council or to the commission. I don't know if anyone has any initial comments or thoughts on that.
That's a big change over what was originally proposed. Right, I mean, the ordinance back in the meeting that we, in February.
So to come off of that, the council, and I realize it hasn't been reintroduced to the planning commission yet, that needs to get done. The council has referred the topographical impact ordinance back to the planning commission, citing that there's lack of enforcement for it, which is kind of a general theme through Title 18. And so that's one way to address it moving forward, as well as putting more of a definition of what those topographical impacts are and looking at, evaluating it more thoroughly, definition wise. One thing, and doing a quick research that I found, was that some communities use, when I'm blanking what it was called, that I couldn't find really any other comparisons for topographical impacts, but I did see where communities were using excavation or fill or like change of terrain. And that's a pretty common theme throughout communities, is to have that kind of a permit process. So if it makes more sense to evaluate how other communities are dealing with similar situations, and then utilizing that, so you're not reinventing the wheel, that's something that could come forward as well. Or if you guys want to keep working on it as it is, we need to bring it forward so you guys can look at it. Is basically, it's just a matter of trying to ascertain how to make it a little bit better defined, and then also what the enforcement looks like.
You're saying that there could be 2 permits, one if you're just doing a building and one if you're doing excavation and fill.
Right.
Yep, that kind of makes sense. Because
Yeah.
if you're just changing the building, you don't necessarily have to do that, the site work.
Yeah. And some people are doing site work well ahead of time or after,
Yeah.
and it's not, another one is that's come up over the last couple of years multiple times, is a permit or including in the building permit, but I've seen it more commonly on its own as for demolishing buildings.
Timely.
It is kind of coinciding, but this was prior to current activity in the community. So, it's more permitting, it's more processes, but it seems like from a staff point, we keep hearing that people want to have more notice, more involvement, more awareness of these issues. And I'm not quite sure how to get that without having a process where people have to actually notify the city of what. But on the other hand, then how do we follow through with that? And that's where maybe contracting out with an individual to review or inspect would be helpful during the process.
So I have a question. So at kind of at a high level, what I think I'm hearing you say is needing that having somebody to administer the permitting process, whatever those specific types of permitting, that would be done by potentially by a contracted person, and the way that that would be, the costs would be covered for that would be through a fee.
Through the permit. Yes and no. I think that administration of the permit itself, the initial administration could still happen internally. It's the follow-up check, the inspection piece, or on some of the bigger ones, sure, like an excavation or fill, where you would have a contractor review as well to ensure that it's a sound plan. But I believe it's more on the review after the projects are taking place on some of them, at least the building.
So is the idea, so is what you're thinking is that you'll provide a proposed process for this and bring that to the planning commission?
Yes. Is that something you guys are interested in seeing in lieu of topographical impacts? And we can, I know we're spitballing, we can present this all, we can talk about it a little bit more thoroughly, but splitting it out and having its own permitting process similar to some of the other communities, and we can present what those look like.
So, I mean, it sounds like you want to benchmark to the most effective way of doing this and then provide a process that was going to work for Seldovia. Is that that's kind of the general direction?
Yes.
And then we'll have an opportunity to discuss it and then go from there.
Yeah, so if you have any feedback or you think about it before the next meeting, let us know and we can put that together.
And is that all the staff reports?
Yeah, that would be all for the staff report.
Any informational items not requiring action? Any comments from the public?
May I ask you a question on that? Okay, got it. So in order to enact having somebody do the inspections, who would decide? I mean, am I getting ahead of myself here or get ahead of you guys? Who would decide which permits are going to have this inspection?
We would have to put out an RFP, request for proposals. And yes, this is a ways out, and then select a firm that would do regular reviews of the permitting of permits, various permits, depending on what is selected that needs review. And then they could either come in person or review documents depending on the size of the project. But no, we're not there yet at what that would look like. It's an idea. It's something that some communities do. Actually, in speaking with our attorney, he mentioned that might be a road we could go. So we can explore it further, but it hasn't been vetted. This is just throwing it out there to see if there's interest so that we can present it to moving forward.
So would that increase the fees then?
Currently, right now, the building permit for new construction's at $500. So if that fit in, then no, maybe not, but it would depend on that RFP process and what that cost would be for an individual to come in and do either the review or an inspection.
So you're talking about taking the $500 that the city gets now and giving part of that to somebody else. So that wouldn't make sense to me.
Well, I could increase it. The $500 is that came in last fiscal year for FY24, and we actually haven't had any new building permits for whole construction in this year. So we're a lot of it's additions and smaller projects, and we don't receive as much for that. I don't know. That's a good feedback. That's something we can look into.
Inspection would be like if they put the house so close to the border, that kind of stuff, right?
Right, exactly. So not a fire marshal or code inspection of building code inspection, but a zoning code inspection for us, which is, setbacks, height, parking.
Yeah, I think Gary has his hand up if online.
Hello, is it okay to talk? Hello?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, so, I think, anybody that's willing to build and spend money in this town, and we've seen a lot of people come and they go. But I think we don't want to impede mostly in the level of time because of all the restrictions and difficulties we're experiencing now with the ferry system and so forth. I mean, building in this town is a real exercise. And I would say that it's great to make sure that the property lines and everything are good, but we have I think all it's in the verbiage of our city ordinances that everything has to comply with Uniform Building Code, which is the state of Alaska that decides that. And so that's in place. Anybody that that builds otherwise, and in Anchorage or wherever, if you get into building any big city, it just becomes really complicated, expensive, and time enduring to do all this stuff. And in Seldovia, we have to keep it simple because it's so important for people that want to spend money here that let's make it happen, but make sure that they're fully informed that it's Uniform Building Code that they have to comply to. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. And then any comments from the commission?
I'm glad to see this progress on the subcommittee and how you brought it together as the next steps to take. It's a lot, I guess, to keep going through. But thanks for putting that together in a way to go forward. And I'm interested in this, the discussion that we just had on the topographical situation. I think that idea to have a separate permit for just that type of work might be a good way to proceed. Or it could be just like a regular permit has a couple of different sections. That'd be one of the sections that is more highlighted. So yeah, good discussions. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I like your presentation, I think was really good, the layout. Good. As long as we can move forward and get it done.
Thank you. And I think we'll get the hang of it as we're going through it and we can I think we'll get practiced at working through it and getting it updated and I just want to honor the work that has been done and then get it done as quickly as possible while also making sure that we don't create any other vexations of the spirit. So, and then our next meeting will be on the 5th of June. And then, as I said, I'll get more of the worksheets put together for the additional items so that we can see how many we can get through. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn at I guess 7:06.
We're gonna
Oh,
need a
sorry,
motion.
I
and
guess
a
I can't
second.
be if I could have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you so much.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I guess with that, we are adjourned.
We are adjourned.
Thank you very much.